still remember that afternoon. The kind that felt too quiet, too heavy, like the city itself had paused to breathe. It was raining again, soft and steady, the kind of rain that doesn't cleanse, just lingers. I was sitting by the window of that little diner near Jefferson Street, the one with the flickering neon sign that reads "Home Cookin'." Though the place hadn't felt like home to anyone in a long time. She was working the lunch shift that day, the waitress with the honey brown eyes and that easy, tired smile that made strangers feel seen. Her name tag said Nora, and that's when he walked in, drenched from the rain, holding the hand of a small girl with 2 pigtails and a pink jacket far too big for her. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of quiet presence that filled the room before he even spoke. A black man, probably mid-30s, wearing a faded work jacket with the name Malcolm stitched on it. He looked around like someone not used to being indoors, scanning every face, calculating, cautious. The little girl tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, can we sit by the window?" He smiled, just a small one, and nodded. "Sure, baby." "Anywhere you want." They took the booth near me. I remember the way the waitress, Nora, glanced up from behind the counter. There was something curious in her eyes. Not judgment, just noticing. "Rain's getting worse out there," she said as she walked up with 2 menus. "You two staying dry?" Malcolm looked up at her, and for a brief second, just a second, he seemed to forget how to breathe. His eyes locked on her like something in her voice had pulled him from another world. The waitress tilted her head, half smiling. "Don't stare like that," she said lightly, teasing, though her cheeks flushed under his gaze. He blinked, realizing, and looked away quickly. "Sorry, it's just, you sound like someone I used to know." The air changed. I could feel it even from my table. She placed the menus down gently. "Used to know?" He nodded, eyes down. "Yeah, my wife. She used to work in a place like this." Something flickered across Nora's face. Sympathy, then something softer. She crouched a little, looking at the little girl. "And what's your name, sweetheart?" The girl grinned. "Amara." "That's a beautiful name," Nora said. "You want some hot chocolate while your daddy decides what to eat?" Amara nodded eagerly. When Nora left to grab the drink, Malcolm watched her go, not with lust or longing, but with the kind of look you give someone who reminds you that warmth still exists. He sat in silence, his hand resting gently on Amara's. She swung her legs and hummed a tune, completely unaware of the heaviness sitting next to her. When the waitress came back with the cocoa, Amara squealed, "Thank you!" And Nora laughed, the sound light and unguarded. "You two from around here?" Nora asked, wiping the counter nearby but keeping her eyes on them. Malcolm shrugged. "Moved here a month ago. Needed a fresh start." "Fresh starts are good," she said softly, even if they hurt a little. He nodded slowly. "You sound like you know." "I do." For a while neither of them said anything. She refilled his coffee without asking. He thanked her every time. And through the window, the world outside kept dissolving in rain. I couldn't help but notice how Malcolm's shoulders slowly relaxed, how the edge in his voice dulled. He laughed once, a low, warm sound that made Amara giggle. It was the kind of laugh that seemed to surprise even him. Then Nora said quietly, "Your wife. She's not around anymore, is she?" He looked down, tracing the rim of his mug. "She passed away 3 years ago. Fire accident." Amara was barely 2. Her breath caught. "I'm sorry." "That must have been," he interrupted, his voice steady but hollow. "You never really get used to it. You just learn to hide it better." For a moment she didn't say anything. Then she reached out, placed her hand over his, a gesture so natural it didn't feel out of place. "You don't have to hide it here," she said softly. He looked at her, and I swear I saw something flicker behind his eyes, that dangerous mix of gratitude and longing, the kind that scares people who've been lonely too long. From the corner, the jukebox began to play a slow tune, an old soul record, scratchy but beautiful, and in that dim yellow light, with rain tapping against the window and a little girl sipping cocoa beside them, 2 broken hearts quietly recognized each other. Nora smiled faintly, pulling her hand back. "You should bring her again sometime." "It's nice seeing laughter in here," Malcolm chuckled. "Maybe. She's the only reason I remember how." And then, as if fate wanted to remind them that peace never lasts, a sudden rumble of thunder shook the diner. The lights flickered. Amara gasped and hid her face in her dad's chest. "It's okay, baby," he whispered, wrapping his arms around her. Daddy's got you." Nora watched them with a look I couldn't quite read. It wasn't pity. It was something else, a quiet ache. When the lights steadied again, she smiled. "You two are safe here." Something about the way she said safe lingered in the air. I didn't know what it was then. But looking back, that was the moment everything began to change. Malcolm didn't know that her past was about to collide with his. That the woman standing in front of him carried her own kind of fire, one that still burned quietly beneath her calm. And I didn't know that by the end of that week, that same diner would witness something none of us could forget. That afternoon it was just a moment, a waitress, a single dad, a frightened little girl, and the sound of rain on glass. But sometimes the smallest exchanges carry the weight of entire lives. As I finished my coffee, I caught one last glimpse of Malcolm watching her. His expression caught between sorrow and hope, and I remember thinking, maybe that's what healing looks like. Maybe it starts when someone looks back at you and doesn't look away. The next few days, I found myself returning to that same diner, not for the coffee, not even for the pie, but because something about that afternoon had stayed with me. Maybe it was the way Nora's eyes softened when she spoke to him, or the way Malcolm, a man clearly built by hardship, seemed to finally exhale in her presence. Every time I walked in, the same scene repeated, the clink of mugs, the hiss of the coffee machine, the faint hum of a radio playing old songs that nobody really listened to, but I'd catch glimpses, small human ones, the kind you only notice when you're paying attention. He started coming more often, sometimes with Amara, sometimes alone. When she wasn't with him, he'd sit at the counter, quietly sipping his coffee, glancing up at the door each time it opened, like maybe she'd appear even when he didn't expect her. Nora would act casual, but anyone could see through it. Her tone would lighten, her posture soften. They spoke in half-smiles and unspoken words. One night I was there late. A storm had rolled in again. The streets were empty, and the neon outside flickered through sheets of rain. Malcolm was sitting alone in the corner booth, the same one by the window. His jacket was soaked, his shoulders heavy. She walked up quietly, towel in hand. "Rough night?" He nodded. "Work ran late. Didn't feel like going home." She hesitated. "Amara?" "With my sister tonight." He smiled faintly. "She loves sleepovers." For a moment, neither of them said anything. The rain filled the silence like background music to something fragile. Then Nora said softly, "You shouldn't be out driving in this weather." He chuckled. "Guess I just needed to see a familiar face." She froze. "Just slightly. You mean me?" He didn't answer right away, just looked up at her, eyes steady, warm, unflinching. "Yeah," he said finally. "You remind me there's still good in people." Her breath hitched, and she quickly turned away to hide it. "You talk like someone who's seen too much bad." "I have." He stared at his hands. "After my wife passed, people kept telling me to move on. But nobody tells you how. You start to believe maybe you're not meant to." She leaned against the counter, arms folded. "Maybe moving on doesn't mean forgetting. Maybe it just means finding a new reason to stay." He looked up at her then, and I swear, that moment felt like the world stopped moving. "You sound like you've been there," he said. Nora smiled, but her eyes were distant. "I lost someone too. My brother. 3 years ago. Car crash. I was supposed to be driving that night." Malcolm's jaw tightened. "I'm sorry," she shrugged, voice trembling just a bit. "It's strange, isn't it? How guilt becomes a place we live in, like a house without windows." He didn't say anything, just reached across the table and took her hand, gently this time. "Maybe you just forgot to open the door." For a long time she didn't move, just looked at their hands. Two people, two strangers bound by invisible pain. The storm outside grew louder. Thunder rolled across the city like a warning. But inside that little diner, the world felt smaller, quieter, like nothing existed beyond those rain-streaked windows. Then the power went out. Everything plunged into darkness except for the faint blue glow of the neon sign outside. Nora laughed softly. "Guess the universe wants us to talk in the dark." Malcolm grinned. "That or it's tired of listening." They sat there, voices low, words spilling easier than before. She told him about how she'd come to the city running from her past, a failed marriage, a mother who still didn't forgive her. He told her about Amara's night terrors, how she'd wake up crying for a mother she barely remembered. "I tell her mom's in the stars," he said quietly, "and that's why we look up every night before bed." Nora's eyes shimmered in the dim light. That's beautiful. She believes it, he said. Maybe that's enough. The lights flickered back on, and for a moment, their faces were bathed in soft gold, close enough to touch, yet just far enough to stay safe. Then Amara burst through the door, her little pink jacket half-buttoned, calling out, "Daddy!" Malcolm turned in surprise. "Amara? What are you doing here?" "I wanted to see you," she said out of breath. "Auntie said you might be here." He knelt down, hugging her tight. "You can't just run off like that, baby." "I'm sorry," she murmured. "I missed you." When he looked up, Nora was smiling, that warm, tired smile that had first caught his attention. "Looks like someone loves her dad," she said softly. Malcolm's eyes met hers, full of something unspoken. Gratitude, maybe. Or the beginnings of something even deeper. He paid his bill, left a tip that was far too generous, and helped Amara into her coat. But before leaving, he turned to Nora and said, "You were right, you know." "About what?" she asked. "Maybe fresh starts don't have to hurt." And then he left, the bell above the door ringing like the last note of a song that refused to end. I stayed a while after they were gone. Nora stood behind the counter, staring out at the empty street, her reflection shimmering faintly in the glass. There was something new in her eyes that night. Not just sadness, but hope. The fragile kind. The kind that only grows after everything else is burned down. Weeks later, I heard he started picking her up after her shift sometimes. Always late, always quietly. The girl would wave from the back seat, and Nora would smile in that same small, careful way. Maybe it was love. Maybe it was something gentler. Two broken souls learning how to breathe again. All I know is, the next time I saw them together, Amara had drawn a picture of the three of them, her dad, and a woman with brown hair serving coffee. At the bottom, in uneven handwriting, she'd written, "My family." And that's when I realized, sometimes the people you meet by chance are the ones your heart was looking for all along.